Good morning. Good morning, and welcome on this chilly morning. It was about 5 degrees when I woke up this morning, but it's terrific to see you all here. This actually is our first event, other than our networking event, in a few months now, as we come out the other side of COVID again, and we're very much looking forward to seeing you all. Shortly, we're going to talk about the programming that's coming up in the next month, a couple of months. We have a very full schedule in front of us, and it's just terrific to see you all here this morning. I'm Ken Reel, I'm CEO of the Greater Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce, and how about this lovely space that we're in this morning? A big thank you to Inga. This is terrific. Thank you for allowing us to kind of set up here, Inga, as we've done this morning. I know you don't have your regular clientele here, but this is fantastic, and thank you again. I want to begin with the overall theme of today, and that is housing. Housing, as you all know, and we're all going to become better informed this morning, is a very, very important topic, not only for our region, but the entirety of the North Shore, Commonwealth, and I would say, by extension, the entire U.S. It's a huge deal here, of course, because housing is so expensive. It's very limiting on our workforce, and our next generation especially. It's almost impossible to find affordable and available housing. And we have come out in support recently of the proposed changes to the Gloucester zoning regulations, and we're involved in all of the housing discussions in our 5 Greater Cape Ann communities. So we're deeply involved in and care about this issue, and we're very pleased to have our speaker here this morning who will better inform us as to what's going on. I want to thank our sponsors. We cannot do events like this morning without sponsors. Our gold level sponsors are Cape Ann Savings Bank and the Law Office of Meredith A. Fine. Our silver sponsors are Harbor Light Community Partners and On2 Mortgage. Our pivotal partner is Applied Materials. And again, thank you to our host, Inga at Cape Ann. Appreciate it. We are going to ask that you hold questions until the end, and I'd like to introduce our 2022 board president. That's Caitlin Pizzeni of Cape Ann Lanes and Laneside Brewery. Pub and Brewery. Thank you, Caitlin. Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. As Ken mentioned, I'm Caitlin Pizzeni, owner of Cape Ann Lanes and our new brewery, Laneside Pub and Brewery, which is right on site. And more importantly, the 2022 Greater Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce Board President. I want to thank everyone for attending today. This topic has been an important issue for years and is obviously essential to ensuring that we continue to thrive and grow as a community on every level. So we're really excited to have such a knowledgeable speaker today. So here to tell us more about this is Cynthia Nina-Soto. Cynthia is an award-winning realtor and owner of Nina-Soto Realty in Salem with over 15 years of experience. In 2020, she became the first person of color to hold the presidency at the North Shore Association of Realtors, where she worked to establish new rules to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in the association. She is also a member of the Harbor Light Community Partners and is a strong advocate for affordable housing and accessibility. She previously served in the Affordable Housing Trust for the City of Salem and currently serves on the Salem Redevelopment Authority and the Salem Scholarship and Education Committee. So everyone, please welcome Cynthia, and we're excited to hear you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the warm introduction, and thank you for having me. Muy buenos días a todos. Yes, I am from the Dominican Republic. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me before we get to it, okay? So let's see here. Perfect. All right, so before we start, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, beyond the awards and the recognition, as Caitlin has mentioned. I was born December 22nd, 1981. That makes me a Capricorn, just like Michelle Obama, so we share something there. I was born in the Dominican Republic. It's the island that shares the country with Haiti. It's where also a lot of us go to vacation because we have the best beaches in the country, in the world, I would say, like Punta Cana and whatnot. I am a big sister. I'm the oldest of 4 from mom and dad. Dad does have 2 other children, so I'm the second of 6. I grew up in a single-parent household. Single-parent household in Salem Point in Salem, Massachusetts. If you know anything about Salem, Salem Point is one of the most segregated areas of the city. Housing accessibility and affordability are things that I struggled with personally since arriving in this country back in 1989. I remember living with extended family when we arrived, as we settled into our new life here in America. America, the land where all of your dreams literally have a real shot at becoming reality. I was like truly jealous of the school friends of mine that were lucky enough to have their own bed, with their own bedroom, with their own bed, and didn't have to wake up with their sister's foot in their face. I did that a lot. They had a bed, and that's what I dreamt of. A bed where their dreams had wings and endless possibilities and a real chance at becoming reality. I often wondered, why was it that I had to live where I lived? Why did my school friends have such different lives than I did? Why did I have to move all the time? Why was my Santa Claus dressed in US Marines as opposed to the red and white Santa suit that we see on TV? Why did my mom have to work 2 to 3 jobs and I still couldn't get new shoes that weren't worn by somebody else? Why? Other parents, I see other kids and their parents didn't have to do it. So why did my mom have to do it? Was she lucky or was she cursed? As a child, I never got the answer to that questions, to any of those questions for that matter. What I did get was my mother saying, "Mija, así es la vida." That's life. It's what we have to do to be here. You need to be grateful that you have an opportunity to live in this country. And don't you ever, ever take anything for granted. Man, did that stick with me. I was like 8 years old, here in the US, didn't speak a lick of English, but I had to learn real quick. And those words, never ever take anything for granted, that really set the trajectory of what my life is today. Never, ever take anything for granted. Ever. As I grew older, my dreams went from having my own room and not waking up with my sister's foot, remember my sister's foot in my face, to one day having my own home with my husband who loved me, children who loved me, and who each had their own bedroom, so they didn't have to wake up with feet in their face. And maybe a dog or 2. We just got a new puppy, so those are the rings under my eyes, right? I literally dreamt of the American dream. And while today I have that and so much more, I can assure you that the road that took me here was not the road that my classmates had to take. My road was so much harder. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about this, why we got here. Why am I telling you all of this? This isn't therapy, I promise you. It's not therapy. I tell you this because it's important to understand that housing affordability and housing accessibility is not a new concept or a new problem, and it's not something that's here to change the character of your neighborhoods. It's not. Housing affordability is a real problem with a real face, affecting the lives of real people. Those are the very people that we work with, that our children go to school with, the very same people that we see at church, at the supermarket, and out and about in our community. I am the product of affordable housing. And if you ask me, the character of your neighborhood is far better with my presence in it. I believe there are 2 fundamental things that every community must address in order to ensure a brighter and stronger future. Those 2 things are housing and education. I just ran a marathon on that concept, housing and education. Today we're going to focus mostly on the housing portion of it, and hopefully our conversation will aid in our collective education. The way I see it, job creation, business development, and stabilized neighborhoods are all part of our collective economic development. As a realtor, I regularly speak with business owners, leaders, and residents, and yes, even elected officials. The common thread between them is that there isn't enough housing to allow for business expansion. There just isn't enough. And the housing that is available is often only accessible to high-income earners and the highly educated, leaving behind the very people we need to grow our companies and ensure a brighter future for our communities. See, the cost of housing goes up as the cost of housing goes up in a community. People clearly may not be able to afford to live there, so they move further out. Moving further away from hot markets like ours potentially stops them from working in locations with higher wages like the ones we offer. This impedes your ability as local business owners to hire workers, and it's frankly really bad business practice. If we can't hire the right people, how can we grow our businesses? Dr. Catherine O'Regan, New York University Wagner, is a professor of public policy and planning. She said that the higher cost of housing in markets with higher wages also may be exacerbating income inequality because less educated and lower income households are particularly the ones likely unable to afford housing in the denser, higher cost areas. While local decisions may be key drivers in the higher cost of housing, the drag on the economy and its contribution to greater income inequality is playing out on the national stage. I completely agree with Dr. Reagan. For years, the Boston area has been a prime example of how difficult it is to find affordable housing. But this isn't just a Boston problem. It's not just a Gloucester problem or a Salem problem or an Essex. It's not a North Shore problem. We've been seeing this nationwide. We're seeing exactly this play out on the national stage. Headlines such as bus drivers working along Silicon Valley millionaires can't afford to rent, and some sleep in their cars. Nationwide, we have seen values increase by 18.5% as of December 2021 versus December 2020. Year over year, values increased 18.5%. Now that may be really good if you're looking to sell your house, right, and cash out. If you're gonna go to Punta Cana, that 18.5 is gonna stretch you out real good, right? You're gonna be comfortable. But it's really exacerbating the affordability problem we've been dealing with for years. In 2021, we saw one of the hottest housing markets, and Boston was here to reap for it. 2021 spurred record-breaking price growth. In 2021, price appreciation was 15% compared to 6% in 2020. So when we look at 2019 to 2020, home values appreciated 6%. It more than doubled the following year. Much of what we've seen in the run-up of home prices over the last years has been a result of the perfect storm, supply and demand. That was a quote by Dr. Nofat's. His comments do bring forward the understanding that we have a major problem in supply and demand. This isn't new to us, right? We know this. Demand, however, is driven by several factors. There has been a generational shift in who's buying houses. See, millennials, I'm like a millennial, right? I'm 40, but like I'm right there. Don't tell my kid that. Millennials are the biggest generation in all of American history. And they are aging right into the prime years of home buying. Mortgage rates are stupid low, like stupid low. If you bought a house in the 70s, how did you do that? I couldn't even imagine. So with interest rates being this low, it's making it very, very cheap to borrow the money needed to buy the house. And with interest rates really low, it means that my dollar stretches out further, which means I can buy more house, which means I can spend a little more, which means I can outbid the person that could hardly get there. The problem we have is that supply isn't keeping up with demand. And before you tell me, but there's a lot of construction going on, take a look at this chart. Home prices have continued to rise, eating away at the affordability. Since 2019, home prices rose 30%. As a result, a typical home is about $80,000 more expensive now than pre-pandemic. Meanwhile, inventory of home sales has dropped significantly in the last couple of years, reaching record lows in 2020. While the stock of U.S. housing grew at an average annual rate of 1.7% from 1968 to the year 2000, in the last 2 decades, the average growth was 1%. And it was only 0.7% in the last 10 years. So we were growing at an average rate of 1.7. We came to a screeching halt in the last 20 years to just 1%. And in the last 10 years, we dropped down to 0.7. This is nationwide. The underbuilding gap in the last 20 years has risen to a 5.5 million unit housing short nationwide. So in the last 20 years, we have a $5.5 million unit shortage, I should say, with regards to housing. And if we add to that the units that we lose to demolition or natural disaster, or just they lose their functional use, we have a 6.8 million unit shortage nationwide. This large gap in production has contributed to an escalation in the cost of renting and the rapid increase in prices. These shortages are clearly felt worse in places where demand is high, such as our hometowns. Near good jobs, good transit, with fantastic school districts, AKA, that's the North Shore. That's why we live here, right? The obvious solution then is just to build more housing in places like ours, right? So if we need more, when we build more. But for years, there has been a huge obstacle standing in that way. We simply are not allowed to build more. There are local regulations that decide what can be built, where can it be built, and how it can be built. This we know as zoning. I want you to take a look at this map. This map is not the North Shore. It's Oakland, California. The pink areas show the residential zoning. Oakland, California has 65% of its city dedicated to single-family housing, which seems pretty balanced. I'll take that. Now, if you take a drive 20 minutes north, we are taking a look here at Lafayette, California. Again, the pink is single-family residence. If you don't see it, this right here is blue, which is designated for multifamily. The city of Lafayette is 98% single family. But wait, it gets better. Drive out another 10 minutes to Piedmont, California, and zoning is 100% single family. There isn't a single home in Piedmont, California that is not designated for single family use. What these maps show is exactly how zoning has been used to ban mostly all forms of housing other than single family. This doesn't just exclude large apartment buildings. I get it, we don't want to see a high rise everywhere, right? But it also excludes the small developments, the 1 and 2, the 3 units, the ones that most of us purchased or our parents purchased in order to get a leg up. This is what we call exclusionary zoning. Although we don't call it exclusionary zoning, sorry, counselor, I know we don't use that word, but it really is exclusionary zoning, right? Zoning has been used to exclude certain people or certain types of homes. Exclusionary zoning will regulate the height, the size, parking requirements, setbacks, and so on and so on. Some of our communities have minimum lot size requirements that range as high as 90,000 square feet to build. Could you imagine needing a piece of land that's 90,000 square feet in order for you to build a multi-family by right? That's just, what? I mean, I don't even know how many football fields fit in that. I could have run the marathon in that probably. It's just a couple, few loops back and around. Exclusionary zoning laws do push builders then to build bigger, more luxury units, which then pushes away the more affordable units. As such, affordable units now have to be replaced with higher income units because the cost of land is still the same. Land is expensive, right? Just as land is expensive, the 2x4 is expensive, right? And a 2x4 that goes into a luxury home, and a 2x4 that goes into an affordable home, and a 2x4 that goes into a multifamily is the same 2x4. So if we have all of these requirements that say you got to have 90,000 square feet of land, at the end of the day, I have to report to investors, right? And we have to get a return on our money. By having these restrictions, you're only allowing people who have already been a part of the American wealth and the American dream, who have high-paying jobs and have a really good education, to live in your neighborhoods. Historically, some of the first zoning laws in the US were engineered exactly for that. It was to keep minorities, and in particular, Black Americans, from living in predominantly white neighborhoods. If you haven't selected a book to read for 2022, I highly recommend that you read The Color of Law. It'll anger you. You'll get really, really, really upset. Shall I get it? There might be one in The Color of Law, right? It's going to get you really, really mad, right? And it's going to question, well, why did we allow this to happen? But I challenge you to read this book with a different perspective, and it is, what can you do to change it, and so that we don't repeat history? Today, our laws do not mention race, as it is completely illegal, but they do continue to worsen segregation. Look at Salem Point. Changing these laws can be absolutely very difficult, and oftentimes the biggest obstacles are the wealthiest residents. The process is usually defined by those who show up to public hearings. And if we learned anything from the pandemic, everybody went to Zoom for their public hearings. And look at the interaction that we got. Listen to all the voices that came across. Man, that was powerful. And for the most part, we have to hear comments like, I really don't want this in my neighborhood, and I'm concerned for my property values, and my all-time favorites, we cannot afford to change the character of our neighborhood. It's fantastic. So I'm not saying that we have to do away with zoning. That would just be silly. I mean, I'm a realtor, right? But what I am saying is that small gradual changes can have a meaningful impact in the lives of many, beyond what you can believe you are touching. Allowing smaller homes on smaller lots, allowing for multifamily developments like the 2s and the 3s, has the potential to almost double capacity. So by building smaller homes on smaller lots and allowing 2 and 3 families, maybe we don't really need that really huge skyscraper, right, that everybody is opposing. It's just a different way to look at things. At the federal level, Biden's infrastructure bill aims to curb exclusionary zoning through a $5 million program that would give money to municipalities that would remove exclusionary zoning. This is more than any administration has done in, as long as I've lived. I don't know, right? But it's not nearly enough. It isn't. Fixing the affordability crisis is going to require real political action. Counselor, I'm looking at you. And it is going to take all of us to take a hard look at our communities and our neighborhoods and ask ourselves, is this what we want? Is this what we need? How are we going to fix it? How do we make a more inclusive community? And I've been talking about affordable housing, but some of you may not know what is affordable housing. HUD defines it as housing on which the occupant is paying no more than 30% of gross income towards housing costs, including utilities. That's it. Notice how the definition does not state that affordable housing is for poor people. It does not state that it's cheap housing. It doesn't state that it's housing designated only for high crime areas. It's not just for the Spanish, it's not just for the colored, it's not just for the gays and the lesbians. Affordable housing is housing in which you are paying more than 30% of your gross income towards housing costs, including your utilities. In Massachusetts, we currently have a shortage of about 200 units short. The lack of housing production has, of course, impeded the community development. The high cost put us at a disadvantage and jeopardizes future job growth as we see people flee Massachusetts for other low-cost states, even New Hampshire. Currently, 23% of Massachusetts renters and 11% of homeowners are considered to be overburdened, in which they are paying more than 50% of their gross income towards housing. Studies have shown that stringent zoning regulations can drive up the cost of a quarter-acre lot by about $50,000. Yeah, land's expensive. I mean, I hear stories of like, I bought this house for $20,000, and I'm like, my knees are weak. I mean, what? We're buying NFT coins for $20,000. Like, what is that? With the rising cost, it's linking to high rents and high prices in our area. And the large minimum lot requirements that we have in many of our communities are aiding in that situation as well. The Baker administration, Massachusetts, has been very, very busy working to put a dent in this issue. We had the 2018 housing bill, and it was the largest housing bill in the state's history, with more than $1.8 million going towards affordable housing production and preservation. The 2021 Economic Development Bill gave us housing choice, which reduces the threshold of votes needed to adopt certain zoning requirements which promote housing production. We saw $50 million for transit-oriented housing developments, TOD sites, $50 million for neighborhood stabilization, and $10 million for climate resiliency affordable housing. When the governor signed the multiple family zoning requirements for MBTA communities last year, he created a real opportunity to have local communities have a more active role in being able to develop those smaller multifamilies that we need. It states that the MBTA community shall have zoning ordinance or bylaw, right, that provides for at least for one district of reasonable size in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right, provided, however, that such multifamily housing shall be without age restriction and shall be suitable for families with children under Section 3A of the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A. This will ensure that MBTA communities, and we are all in MBTA communities, contributes to the production of much needed housing stock in an equitable manner that ultimately leads to more affordable housing. The guidelines provide a clear set of rules for modifying local zoning laws. Best of all, it tackles much of the associated costs that come with these types of developments. Holding costs, permitting fees, all of that, right? I am very lucky to be a member of the North Shore Association of Realtors, North Shore Realtors, as we changed our name. The staff has created a one sheet which you should have on your desk. Sorry, may I just have one? Yep. So this little one sheet here is for you to take if you want, all right? And so what this does is it creates a one sheet and explains how 3A, how the MBTA communities has the potential to help your communities. And so we have here Essex, we have Gloucester, we have all 5 of your communities, Ipswich, Rockport, Manchester, okay? The one sheets are packed with a ton of information, and like I said, it'll break down, it's kind of like a gloss over, but it'll break down what is the 3A, which is what I just read to you, how it affects the communities, what the lot size requirements are, what the lot area is, More importantly, it tells you what the minimum unit capacity is. And this is where I get giddy, right? I get super giddy because we can see in all of our respective towns, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of homes to build. We have a lot of families to create doors for. And so it's going to take every single one of us to collectively put work towards this and open doors for the very people that have been shut out for many years. I want to talk about what's happening in our backyard. As we reflect on COVID-19, our local economy, we see that prices have continued to grow relative to last year. Gains in the last 3 years have extended the trend of positive growth after the recession, and our local economy has been left stronger. Foreclosure rates are in line with the national average of 0.5%. There's no foreclosures going on. New construction activity, while it was strong in 2021, it remains low due to a combination of material shortages, rising material costs, regulatory operations such as zoning, and now a war in Ukraine. So things are going to get a little hairy. In Essex County, we saw a total closed sales of 8,879 homes last year, which was a change of negative 0.6% from 2020. Since 2017, we've seen median prices increase from $382,750, this is in our collective area here, Essex County, to $535,000 in 2021. Let me say that again. 2017, $382,000. 2021, $535,000. Don't whip out the calculator. That's 39.8% change since 2017. But wait, there's more. It was 12.6% 2020 to 2021. Look at that number. 2020, $475,000 to $535,000 just in 1 year. Those aren't nationwide numbers. That's right here. That's right here. That's our backyard, okay? Ipswich, let's break it down. Ipswich saw a 19.9% increase in median prices year over year, with a 60% decrease in available inventory. What? In Manchester, median prices increased modestly by 1.5% from $970,000 to $985,000. That's a modest increase. Still can't afford that, but it's modest. This does, however, correlate with other reports that do state that the luxury move-up market was a little bit slower because of volatility in the stock market. So we see them be a little bit more reserved. In Rockport, we saw 21.6% increase in median prices. And they had, let me see here, negative 22% inventory. Negative 22%. In Essex, the median prices year over year up 10.3% from $705,000 to $777,000 with negative 20% inventory. I'm not making these numbers up, guys. In Essex, the median price I just did Essex, sorry. In Gloucester, there we go. In Gloucester, median prices were up 18.2% from $507,000 in 2021 to $600,000 in 2021, and 25% less, negative 35% less inventory in Gloucester. As we can see, prices in our region have outperformed grossly the national average. We're sitting pretty here in the North Shore. Everybody wants to put on a Red Sox hat and call the North Shore their home, specifically our communities here. Available homes for sale. This is where it's going to kill you. As of yesterday, there were 30 homes available for sale in your 5 communities. I checked this morning as I sat. There are now 28. The most affordable home is a piece of land for $350,000. The most expensive home, $12.9 million. 30 homes. Under $500,000, you've got 4 homes available for sale. But none of this is new, right? We all know that this is happening. This is how affordability has been continued to erode. In the affordability front, the state's definition of affordable housing, which is 80% of area median income, doesn't even touch our communities, because our 5 communities here, affordability is almost 2 times more. So when the state says, hey, we're going to help this developer create affordable housing, and they're going to give you 80% AMI at 12% of the units, we're not really feeling it, because 80% AMI really doesn't do anything for our rents, right? In our area, we should be closer to 60%. That's where we're going to begin to feel it. In some communities, it's down as low as 50% to be able to actually provide a little breathing room under the collar. The reason why this is happening is household sizes is quickly declining, meaning the size of the house is becoming smaller. Household formation rates, however, have been increasing, which is increasing in demand. Essex, a town of just over 3,200 residents, is predominantly a single-family community. Like most of eastern Massachusetts, high housing prices have made it difficult for low and moderate and even middle-income households to afford a home in this town. The growing number of smaller households will lead to a steady housing demand and a greater housing variety. You got to get busy. I totally lost my place. Sorry, the glasses aren't working. Greater variety of housing types, with the largest increase coming for people in the ages 55 to 74. There's a very big aging community in Essex, and very quickly they're not finding homes available. Sorry if you're 55. My husband is 50, if that makes you feel better. I'm 40. I'll be there soon enough. Through the town's participation in the community development process and the Cape Ann Housing Forum, it is beginning to take a proactive step, however, to address the affordable housing needs for its residents. So they're putting a plan in place, which is more than some of the communities have done. I would love to have seen the plan, but it's currently being worked on. In Rockport, the Affordable Housing Trust was created in 2017, and it was created to provide the preservation and creation of affordable housing for the benefit of low and moderate income households. There's also been chatter and discussion about creating a relationship with Habitat for Humanities to be able to create deed-restricted homes for homeownership. According to the census data, the population in the town-wide has declined since the year 2000. That's in Rockport. A large percent of the population downtown is over the age of 65. 28% of the population is over the age of 65. 58% is female, and 97% of the population is white. Did I totally lose my spot? There we go. 80% of the buildings were constructed more than 50 years ago. Downtown Rockport holds many of the retail and commercial and home office, government and fisheries employment found in town. And buildings owned by municipal government and nonprofit groups are an important part of the downtown life. So there's not much space that you can build in downtown, right? Which means that we got to start looking outside of downtown and being able to bring people back into the community. Because the problem why people don't want to live in downtown, why people don't want to live in the rural areas is, how on earth am I going to get to downtown? Oh, and there's a parking requirement. So the land that I build on, I have to have a parking spot, which means that I'm going to need a car, which means that now I have to pay more, which means I can't live here. In Ipswich, on the other hand, has proposed a 2-year moratorium on all multi-unit developments, removing the potential for any development over 3 units. Last time this came before the select board, it was voted 3-2 against, and the proposal back in 2020, September of 2020. The proposal, however, is making its way back to the select board. And while they are proposing that 25% of the units that are approved become dedicated for affordable housing, the proposal, however, does not limit the production of single-family homes. So check that out. The proposal states no more building of multifamilies, but you can build a single family. I'm cool with that. But if you want to build a multifamily, I'm cool with that, but you got to give me 25% of the units for affordability. Now, when I first read this, I was like, the nerve. And then I had to take a step back and say, okay, well, let me look at it with fresh eyes and not through my immigrant eyes, right? What they're trying to do is they're trying to build affordable housing. They're trying to force developers to bring forth affordable housing. But if you're stopping all production from the jump, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I'm glad to report that with the 3A draft that came out from Charlie Baker, they've put a stop to that. They're looking at different ways to make the production of housing much more feasible and advantageous for everybody in the community. In Ipswich, there's a disproportionately small share of 20 to 34-year-olds, so the population is, I know, older. Renters in Ipswich are spread across all age ranges, but a higher percentage, 33% of older adults are over the age of 65, and 18%, they rent, over the age of 65 rent their homes when compared to 18% across statewide and 21% in the county. Older adults living alone are particularly burdened in Ipswich by the housing costs. Nearly half, 49.2% of these households are extremely low income, earning less than 30% of the area median income. I didn't think that was, I was not expecting to see those numbers in Ipswich. Manchester by the Sea, currently the affordable housing stock is less than 5%, which is below the 10% mandated by the state to avoid a 40B intervention by the state. There is a proposed 40B project from Strategic Land Ventures, and that has been met with some pushback. In 2018, Manchester Housing Plan, it was stated that rental housing was cited as something that residents really, really desperately wanted. Since then, however, not much has been done to move the needle on housing development and affordability. I recently read a Gloucester Times article which was referencing this project from SLV, and it said something that stuck with me. It said, instead of pursuing SLV's proposed project, CIMA, which is short for Citizens Initiative for Manchester Housing, Affordable Housing, CIMA hopes to incrementally expand the areas where affordable housing exists, specifically Newport Park and the Plains. This was reported in the Gloucester Times, March 2021. Manchester basically is pushing back on this 40B development. And there's something that really stuck with me with that quote. It said, to incrementally expand the areas where affordable housing already exists. In other words, we will build more affordable housing, but it has to stay over there. It can't come over here. I don't know how you feel about that. I've got some choice words for it, but I got some 6 minutes, so I'm going to go to the next point. Manchester's population has remained fairly flat over the years, hovering right around 5,200 residents over the past couple of decades. Seniors make up 23% of the population compared to 17% and 16.5% compared to the county and compared to the state. Very little racial population diversity, as minority residents represented less than 1%. I wonder why. Yeah, sorry, that irks me to say we're going to build the affordable housing where it already exists, as if affordable housing can't be next to the $1 million condo. Maybe it's just the way that I see the world. I don't know. But I don't agree with it. And if I were queen, I'd be like, banished. And we're not doing this, all right? All right, guys. Gloucester. Gloucester is my darling. Gloucester has been, can I say A-double-S? Has been kicking ass. Like royally, all right? Like the city of Salem was like, let's do ADU, and we couldn't get it done. And Gloucester was like, hold my beer, okay? Gloucester has been super active. They've taken major steps to address a lot of their housing needs. I thought that was a witch from Salem, and I was just like, what just happened? Wow, okay. They're working on removing, I'm sorry, let me go back. They've done ADUs by right, which is awesome. ADUs are naturally occurring. So if you have a home with an attic or a basement or a garage that you no longer use, you can turn it into an accessory dwelling unit. We don't call them granny flats anymore. We don't call them, in-law units, because not everybody likes the in-laws. Mine can say the Dominican Republic. But they're really, really a way to create housing that is naturally affordable, because they're usually in a spot that's a little bit more inconvenient. There's not very good lighting, or in the typically smaller, so you can't rake in the rents that you would on a normal, 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom apartment, right? Which is still a modest apartment. So they're naturally lower income, right? So it's just, they're sexy and I love them and everybody should do them. I mean, everybody. They've been working on removing the special permit requirements for 2-family conversions with exterior modifications, which is huge. They're allowing for 3-family dwellings by special permits in low density areas, and allowing for 3 families by right in high density R5 district, which is currently only allowed by special permit. This is huge. It's like Gloucester looked at 3A and was like, yeah, we're doing that already. They're really taking a step forward to be able to build housing by right. So now we got to take action. As business owners, it is our job to ensure that housing accessibility, affordability, and inclusivity exists for everyone in our community. Literally, the jobs that we created depend on the people that have been historically kept out of our neighborhoods. It is in our best interest to ensure our communities are diverse and accessible to the very people we hire to grow our companies. Our neighborhoods have the ability to determine our children's long-term educational growth, financial, and health outcomes. So now I ask you, what are you going to do about it? And this is not a rhetorical question. I've talked a lot up here. Lost my spot a few times. Definitely skipped a few words. But I ask you, what are you going to do? Because see, it's not enough, and this is definitely not in the script now. I'm going to ad-lib this. It's not enough to say, I am an advocate, I am an ally. It's not enough to say, I don't have a problem with that development. It's not enough. You need to go to that planning meeting and say, I approve that development. Because if you don't go, is anybody here named Karen? Please say no. Okay. Karen is going to come out and with her California, Piedmont accent say, well, oh my God, I come from all single family and we can't do that. People like me who didn't have a voice need every single one of you to be our voices. I can stand up here and I can scream from the rooftop how cool and amazing a diverse community is, but unfortunately what a lot of people see is a brown curly-haired girl from the Dominican Republic who couldn't take anything for granted, who's got to work her ass off to make it happen, who is lucky to be in this country. So please use your voice. Please be an advocate. Don't just write the check. Don't just put a bumper sticker on your car. Really do and take active steps to ensure that we all have diverse and accessible communities. Thank you. And clap. Thank you. Was that good?
Yeah, but we've got some time for questions too.
Okay, good. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm back. Round 2. We've got time for questions. Yes.
I'm Val Gilman, and I'm president of the Gloucester City Council.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Thank you. So I've got 3 quick things, but I'll keep it to under 3 minutes because I want to share the floor.
Yep.
Number 1, we have until March 31st.
Come here so the mic can get you.
Oh,
It's so much better, right? Is that okay? I mean, I said yes, but I didn't even ask. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So number 1, we have until March 31st to respond to the MBTA community proposal. One of the most important things that I would value is your support in explaining to the state the importance of changing the AMI from 80% to 50%, because that's a failure. We lose out on so much support in the community because of that fake information, because they don't believe that what we are offering in Gloucester is truly affordable. And they're right. When you have $800,000 homes, condos, and one of those is a metropolitan rate affordable, that's a joke.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the biggest things that we need to advocate for. And you all have a voice in how this MBTA plan is brought up, number 1. The second issue that I think is really critical is how we reach out to that 80% of the people we're not hearing from. Because at a typical Gloucester public hearing, we get 10% of people that are strongly opposed, and we get 10% that are strongly in favor, and then we've got this 80% that we don't hear from. So how can we as realtors and business owners get that group to understand what we just learned today? And that would be my passion. And the third issue that I'm really upset about is, in order for us to look forward to this MBTA community plan, the state is denying us the opportunity to participate in Mass Works if we don't go all in or not. So Gloucester might decide that we want to keep making this great incremental progress to do what we need to do, and we are. But then all of a sudden we've got this new burden, is how do we not be allowed to grab onto Mass Works, which has given us $3 million of aid in the last 6 years, if you deny us that, if we decide not to go in full Monty, but we still want to be making incremental improvements to get there. So if we can't improve our infrastructure of sewerage and water by taking advantage of a state grant, which they're throwing up there is either all or none, that makes it really complicated for communities that are trying to do what's right. So those are my 3 things. We have a meeting on March 9th, a joint meeting of the Planning Board and the Gloucester City Council. It's at 6 o'clock. It's on Zoom. And we encourage any of you to attend and listen. And Greg Catamatori is going to walk us through this MBTA process. So that's all. I took up too much time, but thank you so much.
I love her. I love her.
You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that, I mean, you just did my whole presentation in like 2 minutes. Like, cool. She's right. We need to be vocal, and we need to help as many people to share their voices and their experiences as well. I'm one of the lucky few that made it out of the ghetto, right? But it's a huge burden. So enough about me. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Ethan Foreman. I'm with the Gloucester Times, and I don't want to turn it back on you, but you know, the real estate industry. What about bidding up houses? You go to buy a property, and you get all your ducks in a row. And it's like, well, sorry, you've been outbid.
Yep.
Is there any way, any kind of reforms?
So as realtors, our job is to represent our client. So if I represent the seller has hired me for one job, and that is to sell their home. And the seller will instruct me to say, I need these specific terms because I need to move out by a certain date, or I need you to get me the most amount of money for my house. As a realtor, I cannot say, hey, so there's an offer here, and if you get yours in by a certain day, we'll get yours accepted. Like, that's completely against the code of ethics. We cannot do that, all right? So unfortunately, the reason why you're seeing all of these like houses being bid up is because there's no supply. Give me houses to sell and watch how quickly those multiple bids disappear. That's the only, for us realtors, that's the only solution. Outside of us selling houses, we are very active in the community. We are constantly speaking with elected officials and educating them and helping them understand how this supply problem is affecting not only homeowners, but renters and the young people coming out of college. I've got one living in my house. She's 21. She's a monster. I can't anymore, right? And I have a 16-year-old. I'm done, okay? But also our seniors need housing. So you want to see prices drop? You want to see less multiple offers? Give me inventory. Give me inventory across the entire spectrum. Inventory that a single mother with 4 children coming off the boat from the Dominican Republic can afford to buy in 2 years after busting her ass with 3 jobs. And then also give me housing for the $1 million homeowner with a yacht outside. That's what we need. Thank you. More questions? I got this. Let's go.
Can you talk a little bit about how local zoning restrictions across the region impact builders? How builders are restricted to a place where they can't build something and create affordable housing. There's this thinking that by forcing restrictions on affordability or exclusionary through zoning restriction is easy
Right.
for them, because nothing happens without the builder.
Right.
Nothing gets created without them.
Oh, you mean the government doesn't build houses? No, government doesn't build houses. We rely on developers. But developers are like the scary boogeyman, right? They're the money grubby. They're like Scruff McDuck, right? Like sitting on the pile of cash, right? But that's not so. Developers, in order for them to be able to pencil a deal, in order for them to be able to get a loan, they have to go to the bank and they have to show the bank that this is going to turn a profit. Ain't no one going to give you no cash if you're not going to turn a profit. And it doesn't matter who you are, it's just not going to happen. So when we have local zoning laws that require huge lot sizes, that require parking, I think in Salem we have a 1.5 car requirement per unit by right. That's a lot of land that's taken up for parking. And that cost of land increases the cost of the development. So if it increases the cost of the development, now I can no longer afford to give you an affordable unit at 30% AMI, right? Or 40 or 50 or even 60, because the bank's gonna look at it and say, well, I can't pencil that. It means I have to come out of my pocket. Every time a developer puts out a project, it's a gamble. We don't know if it's gonna fall flat or if we're gonna kill it. We have stats to help us along, we have trends to help us project, but there's no way of really knowing until the public comes in and decides to rent it and decides to buy it, right? Sorry, that's my kid, the 16-year-old. But to answer your question, these zoning requirements, while at face value they appear to keep away the big bag developers, it's mostly hurting the smaller developments because they're not getting created at all. Why, if I need a 50,000 square foot lot to build a 3-family, why not just take that same 50,000 square foot lot, pay the extra money, go to the ZBA, get on my knees, beg and plead so they can let me put in a 4 or 5 story building? The cost of land is the same. I need to get my return. And that's where the sticking point is. We need to be able to talk to our elected officials and say, hey, I live here, and what I really want is just smaller lot sizes. Like, who here has a 50,000 square foot lot? None of us do. Oh, Patrick, you do? Oh, I thought I was gonna just put you on blast right there. No, I mean, kudos if you do, right? But you likely don't, because you saw the potential and you were like, I should probably subdivide this and make some extra money. Because that's all what it is about, right? We all have a purpose here, and what we want is to leave it better for our children. We started our jobs and our companies to leave it better for our kids. Just remember, it takes a village to raise a child. And if the village isn't there because you've not allowed them to be here, your kid's not gonna have anything to hold to. Does that help? Yeah? All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Cynthia will be around afterwards. We're going to wrap up the program now. And I want to thank you again for coming out this morning. It's terrific to see everybody here in person. And this is just the beginning of what will be a very big year. Next week is a huge celebration for the Chamber. And that's when we're going to be celebrating officially our 100-year young anniversary. We'll be at the Beauport Hotel. We do have a few seats left if any of you would like to join us and have not already registered. Our theme will be Roaring 20s. And yes, we will be in Roaring 20s attire. And looking forward to celebrating that way. And there are some discounted rooms still available at the Beauport if anybody would like to stay over. So that's next Thursday, March 10th, starting at 6 o'clock. The following week is the first of our two big raffles. It's called the Irish Sweepstakes on St. Patrick's Day. And we will be in Ipswich this year at the Mansion at the Hellenic Center. And that's going to be quite a lot of fun. I think we are sold out of tickets, but you may be able to get one or two if you come over to the Chamber. We might have a few left just for you. So, beginning of a very big year, and thank you again for coming out and listening and really joining in on this very important topic. And thank you again, Cynthia, for your excellent words.